Welcome to another allotment diary. Today it's a little bit foggy. As you can see, it's starting to come off. I know it's caused absolute chaos with flights and it's all over the country, so luckily I can see the end of my plot and it's not going to affect me too much. So it's been a week or so since I've been down here. It's school holidays last week, so haven't managed to get down here, but looking at it, it's all looking very, very good. Now on my paths here that I've been carefully building, you can see there is a bit of couch grass coming up. It's got a weed killer, that's taken care of, and that's the idea behind these raised beds and paths, is that it's very easy to weed the paths. Looking around the rest of the paths, there's very, very little on there. Now these are the onions. You'll remember me planting these not too long ago, and they are coming up beautifully. There's some great big ones there. They're doing good. There's one there which has been unearthed a little, so I'll poke that back under the soil properly. And then at this end is all the garlic, which again looks like it's doing fantastically. Now you can remember me telling you that I've sort of designed these beds to be low maintenance, and I keep going on about low maintenance and everything. This has got broccoli in it, and you can see that there's very few weeds. Now I'm going to hoe all these beds in a minute. It's going to take me 10 minutes to do them all, and then they're taken care of. And you can see very, very easy to keep all the weeds under control. There's very few. Just knock the heads off with a hoe, problem sorted, taken care of. Now in this bed, you can see, if I zoom in just there, there's some of the couch grass, and there's a bit over there as well. So those I will dig up separately and dig up by the roots, because obviously they grow from the roots and they'll just keep going if I don't pull them up. In this bed, and you can see I've put in 2 trellises there for the 2 climbing roses. There's 1 climbing rose there and 1 climbing rose there. Those are blue moon roses, so they're going to look quite nice. The trellises are screwed to the baseboards, both towards the top up there and at the bottom down there, so under the soil. So they're screwed in 2 places to make sure they're solid. And you can see in the middle of that bed there's a piece of comfrey coming up, and again that's coming out in a minute. The weed killer over here has done fantastically. That was well out of control and it's now died down, so I'm going to start digging that probably today. This is the path I did the other day. As you can see, I've not put the stuff down, but there's a couple of little weeds that I'll pull up, then I'll get the membrane down and bark it over. That overgrown bit on the end of my plot, which is another plot for something else, that has been trimmed by someone, but unfortunately they've removed the plot boundary. I put up, you can see there the string between the plots. I put that up all the way around the plot, so I knew exactly where I was and where I had to dig with this. But unfortunately, some kind soul has removed it. I mean, there's the end of the string, but it went across there somewhere. But someone's actually pulled up the stakes that I put in and taken the string. I can't even see the string on the floor. So I've no idea. I can guess roughly the end of the plot somewhere around here, but I'm not 100% sure. So I've had to email the committee and ask someone to just confirm where the end of the plot is, because I don't want to, somewhere down here, possibly here, there's meant to be a path between the plots, but I don't know whether it's bending round or whether it's going straight, so I'm not entirely sure where that is. So someone's going to have to sort that out for me. But it's nice to have taken this down. It's looking good. So we're all looking very, very good here. Now, on the bright side, the committee have obviously noticed I've been doing a reasonably good job, and you can see it looks so much better than when I started, because the committee contacted me late last week and said they've got what they call the full plot come up, and they've offered that to me. Now, unfortunately, I've turned it down, and I'll explain why I've turned it down. Now, firstly, the plot isn't hugely bigger than this. It's probably what, maybe 6 feet wider, not much longer. It's probably a bit shorter, but it's more of a rectangular shape, whereas this is a bit of a peculiar shape, because whilst you've got the flat end there, at the other end over there it sort of curves round, so it's not exactly rectangular. But I had to look at the plot, and to be fair, I didn't think it was the best plot for me. I've had a good look, and you can see the work I've done on this plot. If I was going back onto that other plot, it was weeds everywhere. There was no paths in place. I found some raised beds, but they were made of a much smaller wood. So you can see how thick this wood is, and this goes slightly into the ground. It was maybe half the size, so maybe about 4 inches, and it was made with a poor quality wood. Now, if you're building raised beds, it's worth using good wood. These are scaffolding boards, and they're going to last for a good sort of probably 4, 5, 6 years, maybe even longer. The boards on the other bed, I think, had been some sort of pine board or something like that, and basically they were rotten, they were close to the ground level, they were covered in weeds. It was a really, really unhappy plot. Not to mention the fact that right in the middle was a silver birch that's probably about 25-30 feet tall, and you know, that's going to cast an awful lot of shade on the plot. Plus, of course, all my plants are going to be competing with that silver birch for food and water, so it's going to be very, very hard to grow anything decent on the plot. The other issue, of course, was that it's closer to a tree line. So whereas here the sun comes up over there and tracks along like that, this one was further that way, which means it was gets more shade, so it wouldn't get sunlight until probably sort of in the summer, 10-11 o'clock in the morning, which obviously is going to make the plot damp and a bit harder to grow. So having looked at the work I've done on this plot and the work required on the other plot, which was significant, I decided that I wasn't going to take on the plot, because I've done a lot of work on this, and yeah, I know, you know, that end is a state and the other end's a state, and there's quite a bit to do still, but I'm over halfway there. You know, we're getting there, and I'm doing really, really well, and I don't want to go back to way back before I started. Yeah, this plot, I know it was covered in weeds, but one of the advantages was they were weeds, so you could pull them out. It wasn't grass. Like that end over there is all grass. That's going to be really hard to get out. And the entire plot was covered in grass. You could barely see the raised bed. So unfortunately, whilst it had a bigger shed, it had a greenhouse which had some panes missing, but they probably could be replaced. I decided that it wasn't worth my while giving up this plot to move over there, because this plot has an awful lot going for it. I know that on this side that there's a lot of hardcore, the soil isn't brilliant, and that's why I've got raised beds in place. And I know that obviously there's a lot of weeds, but it makes a lot more sense for me, because, as I said, over half this plot is now done, and it's all low maintenance. I'll be going back and having to start again and putting a lot of work, which I don't want to do. So I've chosen not to take on that plot for that very reason. So I'm sticking with this one, and we're going to do lots of exciting things, because I'm really excited to share it all with you. So I'm going to do some weeding, I think, now, and just go over with a hoe, get rid of all the weeds between the plants before they get established, so that they don't take over. One thing I am doing is there's another weed growing in the stuff there. One thing I am doing though over here is I'm putting some beer traps in. So they're just cheap bottles of beer buried in the ground that will hopefully keep the slugs off. So I'm putting a couple in there just to test them. The copper stuff that I put on the outside there, it's done nothing. Hasn't seemed to have done anything to keep these slugs off. So now we'll try beer traps. I know beer traps work, and I'll get those sorted and in today as well. So there's quite a bit to do today. It's all very exciting. I am looking forward to getting it all done, and I will get on with work and update you as we go through and interesting things happen. Okay, it's a quick update before we go home. Unfortunately, I'm a bit tired than I thought, so I've not done as much or as fast as perhaps I'd like, but there's still been progress made. Now, what I want to show you is I've been using a lot of bark chipping, and we get bark delivered here for free that we can use. It comes from the council, and the council dumps it here, and we then use it. Unfortunately, some of it, such as this, is a bit too full of leaf mould to be useful, and you can see there's a nice lot of fungus growing on that one. When I tried to use this particular bark, I found it very, very, as I said, full of pine needles and leaf, so it'll break down a lot quicker than something that's actual bark and wood chippings. So just be careful if you are using free wood chippings that you get decent quality ones that aren't going to cause you problems. Sometimes they're mouldy, sometimes they've got fungus growing in them, sometimes they're just too much leaf to be any good. But we've had a bit of progress. This path is down now. I've left this bit here blank because I'm going the path is continuing along here. This is the path between the plots. It's the plot holder's responsibility, so technically it's my responsibility and my neighbour's responsibility, but I've done it because it's really more my plot. I think it's more my plot than theirs. So you can quite clearly see the boundary for the neighbours there, and I suppose my boundary is along those beds. But I figured as I'm clearing it, it affects me more than them as it grows onto my bed. So I've cleared the path, and I've left that bit blank just so that it's easier to dig the paths down here. My plan, I think now, is on this bed is just to put long beds. So the beds will be that sort of width, but they'll be a lot longer. They'll go the full length, I think, of there, and that will make a fairly good use, I think, of this end of the plot. But you can see this bed, these two beds, I've covered in black plastic. It's just I've hoed them, raked them down so they're mostly flat, and they're covered in black plastic weighed down by stones. It's just going to reduce my weeding over winter. So I'm not planting anything in those two beds over the winter months, so there's no point me leaving them uncovered and having to come down every couple of weeks and weed them. If I cover them, I can uncover them in spring, quick hoe over, throw some pelleted chicken manure on. That's fair enough. Now we are expecting at some point a delivery of manure here at the plot. I don't know when it's going to arrive. I keep my eyes open for it. When it does arrive, what I will do with all these three raised beds, that one, and that one, is I will uncover them, because I am going to cover that one. Unfortunately, I've run out of black plastic bags, and of course, you know, our allotments are nowhere near any shop, so I've got to go and get some more. But these three beds, because the soil level's quite low, in particular on that one, you can see there's a little gap there where it's actually, the soil level isn't high enough to even get to the path. So these three beds, as soon as the manure arrives, I'm going to get a lot of manure, and I'm going to raise these beds up by probably about 4 or 5 inches. So they're about 2-3 inches away from the top. So we've got a decent level of soil in them then. And I'll dig it in, and then I'll recover it. Now, I've not stapled these these plastic bags in there for that reason, is I do have to put manure in these beds and build them up a bit. I also have to build up right over here. Let's wander all the way over here. Oh, there's a bit of the path there, not quite covering things, so there you are. You see the path's a bit uneven, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter. These two beds here also, you can see there, it's very, very very low, the soil level. So again, when the manure arrives, these beds too will be built up. Because these are stapled, Unfortunately, I'm going to have to rip the plastic off and replace it. But on the other beds, I've just used stones to weigh them down, so that's going to be fine for me. This bed here had a beetroot in it. I have picked some, but frankly, it's not particularly big, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I might take it home, pickle it, cook it, something like that. Not sure yet. But I've cleared that bed. I've got rid of that Jerusalem artichoke, which frankly was looking extremely sad. So that's gone. That bed's clear. Nice high level of soil. So all that needs is covering. It could perhaps at some point do with that board along the edge there being replaced. It's rotting a bit, as you can see. It's not too bad. Still got a couple of years of life in it, but this is where what happened with all the weeds, because there were so many weeds growing along the outside of the beds, and you can see along there as well, same thing. Where it was covered in weeds, it's unfortunately damaged the bed. So some of these will have to be replaced as and when I get new scaffolding boards. I pulled all the leaves off the rhubarb that was starting to yellow and die. When the rhubarb's died down, I want to move that. I want that bed for vegetables, so that's going to go down on the other side of the shed. I think I've pretty much decided the other side of the shed is going to be purely soft fruit, and this side is going to be vegetables. But once I've got that clear, obviously I've got another bed open for crop rotation, and I can grow a lot more over here. So you can't move rhubarb until it's dormant, so that's basically over the winter months. You've got to be really careful moving it. It has quite a big root ball, so you've got to really make sure you get as much of the roots out as you can, and then the following year you shouldn't really harvest it in the first year. Give it a chance to really establish itself. Now these are quite healthy plants. I think this was the first year they were in, to be really honest with you. I'm not 100% sure, no one here seems to know, but I think it was the first year they were in, judging from the size of the plants and the thickness of the stems and things like that. But unfortunately it's a really bad place for them. They're in a raised bed, they're taking up valuable space for vegetables. They don't need to be in a raised bed, and the problem is they grow really big. They grow over the edges, and you can see again these the beds are damaged, and that's partly because of the rhubarb keeping the moisture on. But the other big problem with rhubarb is it's a great place for slugs and snails to hide. So that there means slugs and snails are going to be all over my plants. So it's going to go down the far end, so over there behind the shed somewhere, once I've cleared that. So that's not an immediate job. That's a job for over winter. The next job is just to finish covering the beds, but then I really want to clear that area there. Once that area is clear, I've got a tarp in the shed. I'm going to tarp it until I get hold of the scaffolding boards and can build that. Once that's done, we can start behind the shed, clearing where the greenhouse is and everything else. But we are getting there. There's some really good progress. I'm pleased with how well I'm doing, and I must admit I'm looking forward to coming back tomorrow and doing a bit more and starting to dig that area over there. I think the first call of duty action, I'll get those paths down the side there, and then the beds are all nice and neatly marked out, and then I can dig over there. Doing the compost heaps is starting to become quite urgent, because obviously that's in the way. The compost heap, if you remember, is probably going to go here where the bath is. Yes, I have a bath at my allotment, but I was thinking of putting it here. Again, I'm in two minds about that, simply because a compost heap can attract quite a lot of slugs and snails and other pests, of course, and it'll be right by the greenhouse. So I'm not 100% sure yet, but I think, to be really honest, that's the only place it can go in the plot without it really being in the way. There's not a lot of space over here. You can see, because it curves round, there's not a massive amount of space here. So once I've cleared this, I'm going to have a couple of rhubarb and probably some raspberries on it, and that's going to be all that's down this end. That plastic greenhouse, I might replace it next year. Once I clear this and I can really see what's there, I may well end up putting a proper greenhouse in there. I know it's not ideal, it's not really facing the right way, etc, etc, but that plastic greenhouse, a couple of struts are broken in it. I think it's held up more by a wish and a prayer than anything else. So I might, once I've cleared it, we'll consider that, because that'd be 8x6, I think. Having a quick look at it. Let's have a... Yeah, because you can see that there's a metal bed, and then there's a raised bed in the metal bed. So I have no idea what that's about. I really don't. I think the metal bed was there to anchor the greenhouse, judging from or something. I don't know. But I'm going to look at, as I said, I think 8x6 greenhouse. Possibly put one in there. Simply because you know, we have shared polytunnels here, but it'd be nice to have a greenhouse where I can grow peppers, aubergines, and do some sort of tomatoes as well. So we'll think about that. I haven't really ventured in there yet, but I really must at some point. And of course there's that thornless blackberry, which hasn't really produced a lot of blackberries, to be fair. It's produced some, but mainly just a cupful, so I don't know what to do with that. Because of where it's planted, I could train that. This bit here is the continuation of the path between the plots, so I might train that along a fence. If I put some stakes and some wire along here, I could train that along the fence, and that could be quite a handy sort of barrier, if you like. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know, but I've got to have a think, because obviously there's this area here, what I'm going to use this area for, but all that's a problem for future Jason. Current Jason is thinking about some lunch and a nice cold drink, and tackling that bit up there, because once that bit up there is done, that's 2/3 of the allotment done. I just clear that, and it's only that end left to tackle. So I'm really pleased with the progress, and I'm going to go and enjoy my cold drink and rest now. So I will leave you in peace and quiet, and I said, let me know how you're getting on at your plot, what you're growing, how you're finding gardening in the winter. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments. Happy to help you out, try and answer your questions, and I look forward to sharing another video with you very soon.